following Cougar wrap-up program is being presented by the Yale Insurance Agency, 330 South Wells in Chicago, 427-6322.
Well, hi again, everyone. I guess I don't have to introduce this player on my left right now, even though he isn't wearing the familiar number 9. He's Bobby Hull. And Bobby, of course, is a spectator tonight because he still cannot play, cannot coach until that federal judge in Philadelphia decides the case. And of course, Bobby can also not talk about that case while the litigation is still pending. But Bobby, I know you can talk about tonight's hockey game. And it was a very interesting hockey game, especially after the first period, the way Winnipeg went ahead and the way Chicago came back.
Oh, Brad, the boys came out here in their home opener a couple of weeks or so ago and sent the joint out against Edmonton. And they came out this first period tonight doing the same thing. And they had me a little frightened for a while, but they came on and they tried to give it away again. But they're a fine group of guys, great hockey club.
You're a fast skating team, Bobby.
Yeah, I think so. Whoever put these guys together, and it's Anna Stukas and Bill Robinson, they did a terrific job. There isn't a bad apple in the whole group. And I was quoted here last week in the newspaper by saying I wouldn't trade him for the pick of the rest of the league, and that's just exactly how I see it. They're a heck of a bunch of guys, and we're very fortunate to have them here.
Of course, Chris Bordelow's had a fine year for the Jets so far, even without you at left wing. He had you last year. Last year, he only scored 14 goals. Already this year, he scored 9. I want to talk to you about Chris. First, let's take a timeout.
When should you be concerned about auto insurance? As soon as you can drive a car, really. You don't have to plan on having accidents, but you should plan on having auto insurance just in case. That's why Yale Insurance Agency promises that they can insure anybody with auto insurance. And Yale Insurance Agency can find the best auto insurance plan for you, because that's their business, finding insurance to fit your circumstances no matter what your driving record or whether you're going on 16 or 80. And as one of Chicago's largest insurance agencies, Yale deals with some of Chicagoland's finest insurance companies, so they can do more for you than you can, and all for a small down payment and easy terms. Call Yale Insurance Agency at 427-6322 and see what they can do for you. Make an appointment to see one of their representatives at either the Loop offices or in the convenience of your own home. And call tonight, 427-6322. Do yourself a favor and call the Yale Insurance Agency.
They're the big wheels when I was a kid. Bobby talking about when he was a kid. I'll tell you, I walked into the Winnipeg Arena this morning, and it was really strange. I know Bobby's been up here for some time now, and he's allowed to work out with the Winnipeg Jets. It was really strange seeing Bobby Hull skate around in a pair of red trunks and not the familiar black of the Blackhawks. The kids were still up here also skating around. You had 3 of your boys here today. And something different from Chicago, Bobby. You allow kids to come in here and see you practice, and you really draw them.
Well, I think that any sport is very, very important for children, and the more kids that want to come in this building, the better I'll feel about it. And any of the guys that want to bring their kids down to the dressing room, we even have meetings with the kids in their dressing room, and of course that wouldn't be allowed in other areas. But I think it's terrific for the kids. It's great for the guys being on the road so much to have their families around them as much as they can while they're home, and we're away enough that we don't get to see the kids often enough, and anytime that any kids want to come in as a rink, they're more than welcome.
Well, you sure make them welcome, because I saw you signing autographs today. You signed quite a few. I know kids are asking you for sticks and everything else. I know there aren't enough sticks to go around. So I understand yesterday you must have signed autographs an hour and a half.
Well, we had a workout over at a private school, Brad, and there were a number of the classes in the lower school allowed out to watch our practices, and of course not only myself, a lot of the other guys stayed around and signed their autographs, and of course me being the last dog to be hung, I may have signed a couple more than the other guys, but it's great for the kids, and Winnipeg not having a professional team, and a lot of these other cities out in the western provinces here and in part of the United States not being able to see professional hockey before, I think it's great for everybody.
Bobby, you, of course, made your name during the old National Hockey League days when we only had 6 teams, about 108 players, the cream of the crop. National Hockey League has since gone to 16 teams. I know you've commented in the past, it just doesn't seem the same, because because you aren't going up against that top competition night after night. You've got the expansion clubs, which other have not. They just can't expect to go up against teams like Boston, Montreal, New York. What about your league? What do you see as the caliber of play here? I can't say your league, but what about the World Hockey Association?
Brad, I really, I thought that the National Hockey League, of course, when there were the 6 teams, as you say, they had the pick of the entire country for 6 teams. And it was diluted somewhat with the expansion, and will be with the expansion. Of course, our league's in much the same state as the National Hockey League in the fact that we have 12 new franchises, plus the 16 in the National Hockey League, and it is going to be somewhat watered down for a little while. But every game that I've seen our club play in here and against the other clubs, it's fine hockey. It's very fine hockey. It's fast skating, and we've got enough fellas from the National Hockey League, experienced fellas, plus a lot of kids that had shuttled and shuffled by the National Hockey League into these other leagues that never really got a chance to come up and to prove what they're worth.
Well, hockey's entertainment. As long as you give the fans a good show, a close show, an exciting show, I guess it really doesn't matter. Because there was nothing more dull than watching a lopsided game where one team was just maybe going for the tie, dumping the puck. There's nothing like watching a Chicago-New York game, a Chicago-Montreal game. But you watch a Chicago-Los Angeles King game, and there was something lacking. I've seen only 2 games so far. This game tonight, which was close for the most part. I saw the Chicago Cougars beat the Los Angeles Kings. There haven't been many of these 8-7, 8-6 games that they thought there would be.
Now we have very close games, and plus the fact that we're having a number of goals scored, and I think we're making it very interesting for the people. Of course, we used to get some lopsided games in the National Hockey League, even back when there were 6 teams. So there was power back then, and on 3 or 4 of the teams, and a couple were somewhat shy. But heck, there's room for us all. The National Hockey League and the WHA, and heck, we don't want to do anything but entertain the people, and hope we are allowed to do so.
We'll talk more with Bobby Hull right after this time out.
If you're a tavern owner, you probably have a special group of customers, a special house drink, or a special insurance, like liquor liability insurance. Well, that's why you should see Yale Insurance Agency about liquor liability insurance for less than you're paying now. That's their business, finding the best insurance policy for people like you. You may be paying too much right now and not even know it. And all it takes is a phone call to Yale at 427-6322 to find out. The Yale Insurance Agency can also find you homeowners or homeowners policy at the same low price advantage no matter where you live. For a small down payment and easy monthly terms, you can avoid gambling with the expense of a fire or a robbery. Call the Yale Insurance Agency at 427-6322 for a free estimate. Take advantage of the small down payments and the easy monthly terms that have made the Yale Insurance Agency one of Chicago's largest agencies. And do yourself a favor. Call Yale Insurance Agency now at 427-6322.
Once again, our guest here on Cougar Wrap-Up, Bobby Hull, who liked the air of, 4,500 here maybe tonight because of the snow?
We have had a bad day of it, Brad. We woke up this morning with, I would say 2 or 3 inches, and it snowed another 2 or 3 this afternoon, and the kids were wanting to get the skidoos out already. So it was a little tough for the folks, and I expect that had it been a good night, we'd have had upwards of 6,000 or 7,000 people.
I know if you'd been playing, we would have had standing room only. But I was going to say, like the 4,500 fans who were here, you were a spectator, and I know that's got to be tough for you, and I don't want to ask you too much about that. But I understand you moved into a new home, and you've got an indoor swimming pool, and doesn't swimming soften the muscles?
Well, I haven't been in it yet. As a matter of fact, none of the kids have. We're busy moving in, and it's pretty tough to let the 2- and 3-year-olds in there without any lifeguards, so to speak. So we've kept it kind of closed. It's going to be nice for the kids. I'm sure we're going to enjoy the city of Winnipeg. It's a big little city, and within 5-10 minutes you're out into the country, which pleases me very much. And the kids are playing more hockey than they can really stand. They're being sought after by a number of the teams around. So I think they're going to enjoy it too.
Bobby, who's handling the team right now from the bench?
Nick McCoskey, the Chicago fans will remember Nick back when I first came up in 57, 58. Nick was already here. He had come in a trade from New York, and he played 2 or 3 years in Chicago, and I know pretty well all the hockey fans there that began watching back, and when I first came up will know Nick. He's a very knowledgeable guy and a good guy to work with.
How many people did they used to attract to those games when you first came up?
Oh, I think when I first started to play, they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 or 4 or 5,000, sometimes 6. It depended, but we it didn't take too long before they became very interested. Tommy Ivan did a very good job of recruiting, and Rudy Pillis came from our old junior A team in St. Catharines, and Stan came up, and of course Pierre was there, and Elmer Vasco, and then Johnny McKenzie and Wayne Hillman and Chico Mackey, and of course Dennis and Dougie and Freddie Stanfield and Phil Esposito, and I could go right on through and name them, and they soon began to make the old Barn Creek there. And for the last, I don't know, 10 or 12 or 14 years, it's been pretty well filled.
I started to talk earlier about Chris Borlow. He, of course, centered for you at the latter stages of last year. He's off to a great start here. 14 goals last year. Already he has 9 here, and he broke in that first game. He had 4 goals. He said he should have 7.
Well, Chris, like a lot of the other NHL players, really understands our position here in the league, that someone has to take the old bull by the pole, so to speak, and take off with it. And Chris has been terrific, along with Bill Sutherland, and that played with he played with Philadelphia, and Ab McDonald. God, Ab's been just terrific. Danny Johnson has really taken hold. Normie Bowden, all these guys that really know what it's all about, winning and getting kids up for games. They've really taken hold, and they've just been terrific.
We'll be back with a final question for Bobby Hull right after this timeout.
When it comes to a big expenditure like a new car or a new house, you shop around. But do you have the time or the know-how to find yourself the best auto insurance? Probably not. So let Yale Insurance handle it for you. That's their business, finding automobile insurance to fit your needs. And as one of Chicago's largest insurance agencies, Yale deals with some of Chicagoland's finest insurance companies, which gives Yale the resources to find you better auto insurance than you could probably find by yourself. No matter who you are or what your driving record is, Yale Insurance Agency can get you automobile insurance you can afford and at easy terms. So if you need auto insurance, or if you think you're paying too much now, call Yale Insurance Agency at 427-6322. For auto insurance at low monthly rates and small down payments, talk to one of their representatives at either the Loop office or in the convenience of your own home. And call tonight, 427-6322. Do yourself a favor and call the Yale Insurance Agency.
Bobby, the big surprise I would have to say in the World Hockey Association right now is the fact the Philadelphia Blazers are in last place with a record of 0-7. They aren't the only 0-7 team over there. The Philadelphia 76ers are 0-7 in the NBA. But here's a team with Johnny McKenzie, who I know has been out with a broken arm, supposed to play tonight. Also Derek Sanderson, Bernie Perron, who played up until last night when he broke a leg. What's their problem?
Brian Campbell and Andre Lacroix and a number of others. I think mainly what it's been, and me being an old hockey player would have to go on the side of the hockey player, they haven't been able to get home for, I think, 3-week period. And it makes it tough to start a season off when no one's settled, and they have families back in Philadelphia that no doubt need help with the guys being on the road. Plus the fact that I really think with Johnny not being out there to really give him that boost is hurt them a little bit. Derek is the type of guy that now it may still, that the big salary may still, big contract may still be, still have him up in the clouds, so to speak, and he really hasn't got down to working yet. And I had a talk with Derek and Brian and Andre here before our 2 games, and they, according to Johnny, they got off their butts and started to work a little bit. It's just been a fact that they haven't really realized how important it is for these guys to go yet, and they really haven't taken hold.
You know, you like Ernie Banks. I thought you would be too nice of a guy to be a coach. You know, you have to clamp down on players. You've got to respect because you've proven yourself on the ice, and players always tend to respect the performer. But I'm told that these guys really work out. And one reason, of course, you've always been a hard worker. You've always, you're the last guy again to leave practice today, but this seems to be a very close-knit hockey team and a team that sticks together and really works.
Well, Brad, I really haven't been able to coach yet to the point where I really to get into it. I go out and of course, work out with the guys, and I do my workout in the practices like I think I did in the games. I feel that if players work hard in practice, then it makes it easier in the game. So I think with me being out there and working real hard, that the other guys tend to fall in line and do the same thing. But I don't think once in a while you have to be a little tough with a group of guys. But as I said earlier, the type of guys that the Winnipeg Jets have here, they don't need much of a whipping.
We're going to be in Chicago on Monday. First of all, for the Chicago Quarterback Club, that's going to be at 12 o'clock at the Sherman House. Right now it's still for the College Inn. As long as you're going to be there, they might move it up to the ballroom. I don't know about that. But you'll be there, and also Ben Haskin from who's the owner of the Winnipeg Jets. We're going to have some Chicago Cougars there. I'm also wondering, are you going to work out at the amphitheater?
Yes, we're looking for some ice. I don't really know what's going to happen, Brad, but we'll be in Chicago for the Quarterback Club. And you mentioned Benny being there. He's a hell of a guy. He's a real nice guy, terrific guy to work with, and we couldn't work for a nicer guy. He's big and jovial, and of course he likes to win too, like everybody else. But he's a great guy.
And he's the guy who signed that $1 million certified check. We don't want to lose sight of that fact. This has been Bobby Hull, of course. He'll be in Chicago on Monday. His team, his possible team, the Winnipeg Jets, beat the Chicago Cougars tonight by a score of 4-2. Don't forget, our next telecast on Channel 44 will be Wednesday night from Boston. The Cougars' next game will be in Chicago Tuesday night, the amphitheater, against Bobby Hull's Winnipeg Jets. An outside chance that Bobby Hull could be making his World Hockey debut. Let's hope so. And so from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Brad Palmer saying good night, everybody.
The Cougar wrap-up was presented by the Yale Insurance Agency, 330 South Wells in Chicago, 427-6322.
The Chicago Cougars hockey games are coming to you on the new TV 44, WSNS, where you'll also see the Chicago White Sox in action in 1973.
Oh, more. Centering pass, but nobody there. Now Barber comes back to get it for Chicago. Washer on the ice because it's right in on goal against McLeod, and back to get it Barber for Chicago. Just starting the second period of play, and the Cougars trail Minnesota 2-0. Out to center ice, scramble for the puck. Hupper, Christensen, and Nibs fight for it over there. Christensen gets to it and gives it off to Mike McMahon. McMahon, a former National Hockey League player, made the All-Star team one year. Played 20 games with the Blackhawks back in the late 60s. Into the corner, and Butch Barber for Chicago, deep in his own end. He brings it out here. Taken away right out in front by Hampson. Hampson's around, but he's ridden up like a hand. Here comes Klatt. Klatt's taken down by McLeod. Almost a costly mistake that time by the Cougars. Out to center ice. Taken there by McMahon. Comes over here to Klatt, broken up by Linden, but Klatt gets it anyway. Klatt carries over the blue line, checked hard by Barber. Barber takes it away from him, gives it off to Liddington into the corner. Liddington behind his own end. Klatt right behind him, taken away by Minnesota, but Nibs gets it back for Chicago. Boy, some dangerous play right out in front of McLeod. Chicago gets it out to center ice. This is Bobby Whitlock, tries to shovel it to Nibs, but it's broken up instead by John Arbor. And the Cougars get it right back. A little sloppy play here. Both teams are having trouble getting their passes, connecting on their passes. Here's a shot in on Curran. Taken off by McMahon. Leads it up to Hampson. Hampson dumps it over here right side to Conley. Conley into the Cougars, try to center. He does, but nobody's there. Taken off by Payma, Chicago. Payma right wing, centers for Szynski. Szynski gets around ball, back to Payma. Here's Payma in front of back here off the post. Off the post. To the point, a shot. Anderson deflected out in front by Ball. Tough luck for Payma. He just missed with a backhander. Here comes Minnesota. Pass over led for Conley, taken off by Anderson. Back to center ice to Szynski. he can't control. Taken off by Speck. Speck of Minnesota over the blue line. Centering pass in front, and somehow Morrison just did not get to it. Couldn't get a stick on it. Controlled by Szynski in his own end for Chicago. Drops it back for Mavety. And Mavety throws it out to the point for Minnesota. Chicago gets it back. Here's Payma, right side. Payma throws it in way wide of Curran. Comes off to Ball. Ball out to Speck at center ice. He's got two men to beat. He can't do it. Taken away by Anderson. Slap back out to center ice. Out to Bob Szynski. Szynski carries in all those. He's ridden off the puck hard by, just like Paradise. Whistle blows. They're going to face it off. So with 16:56 to go, second period, 2-0 Minnesota. Let's take a timeout.
He changed the assist here. First goal. They took it away from Platt and give it to McMahon.
Face-off just to the left of Mike Curran. That's going to be McMillan in the helmet for Minnesota and Reg Fleming for Chicago. I'm handing this back to you is Rick Morris. Draw into the corner to McMahon of Minnesota. Shovels it around. Comes all the way out here to Connick, but he can't get to it. Held in the... taken off instead by Connick. Connick from Minnesota comes up all by himself. Right on the shot. Here's Antonovich. A big pile up in the crease. McLeod into the goal along with Connick. Finally pulls himself out. Scramble for the puck in the corner. This is Antonovich along with Fleming. Finally comes out and off by Lodbo onto the ice for the first time for Chicago. Over to Morris, the shot just wide. Comes all the way around to the point. Kept in by Cahan. Taken off by McMahon of Minnesota. Gives off to McMillan. Here comes Minnesota. Antonovich carries over the blue line. And now pulls up as the Cougars were laying back for him. Poked away by Lodbo. Lodbo, one man to beat. He's going to beat Sanders, but Sanders gets to it first and pokes it away. Frank Sanders from Minnesota. Gets it out to center ice and poked right back by Cahan. It would be offside, but Minnesota gets to it first. Out to center ice, a scramble there, taken off by McMillan of Minnesota. He's knocked down by Fleming. Taken off by Morris of the Cougars. Morris now out to center ice, drops it back to Cahan. Cahan over here to Barber. Barber, a lead pass that's overled for Lodbo, broken up by Antonovich behind his own goal. Antonovich ridden from behind by Lodbo, but he still controls. He's up left wing. He licks the center for McMillan, but he doesn't. He hangs on to it instead. Takes it into the Chicago zone and throws an easy shot in on McLeod. Comes right back to Antonovich. He falls on it. Whistle blows. They're going to face it off.
Again, Brad, we go about 4 minutes without having a whistle. People are trying to change the lines on the go, but the play's going back and forth so fast that it's really dangerous. The old rule, you know, you don't change when the puck's in your end, and it was pretty tough to keep it in either end for very long, so it was hard to make a change. And the result, the Antonovich line seemed to be out there for 3 or 4 minutes, which is too long to be efficient if you're working hard.
That's right. The puck's been at center ice for the last, most of this period about 4.5 minutes old. Cougars trailing Minnesota, score of 2-0. Minnesota getting both goals in the opening 2.5 minutes of play. Morrison and Christensen scoring for Minnesota. Puck in the Minnesota end. That's out to Lillyholm wearing a helmet. Checked off by Nebbs. It comes back to Dick Paradise. Paradise for Minnesota. He brings it out. Out to center ice. Anderson tries to keep it in, but he can't do it. An offside called against the Chicago Cougars.
Well, this period certainly is a little different than the first one. This is very even, chances at both ends. In the first period, as you well remember, the first 5 minutes, it looked like it might turn into a rout. But I think it's going to be a hockey game before we're finished.
Face-off comes back to Larry Mavety of Chicago. 14:48 to go, second period of play. Dumped into Minnesota zone, but back to get it for Minnesota is Dick Paradise. He's back behind his own goal. He brings it out now. Passes right out in front to Falkman. Falkman out to center ice. Carries himself over the blue line. Tries to get through Anderson and Mavety, but can't do it. Keeps it in at the point. Over to Antonovich. Antonovich wheels around. He tries a shot. Deflected up the skate of Anderson. Taken up by Liddington of Chicago. Right wing pass to Whitlock. Whitlock, though, can't control. A little bit offside, but they've taken the puck. Off to McMillan. McMillan a pass to Antunovic, but then Antunovic over the blue line ahead of the play. Offside, and a lot of the fans here don't like it. Want to remind you that the Cougars' next home game is Tuesday against the Cleveland Crusaders. You can get tickets to that game at Sears, Ward's, Ticketron, and the Amphitheater box office. And on Friday night, Bobby Hull's Winnipeg Jets come to town as Bobby Hull makes his Chicago debut in a Winnipeg Jet uniform. And then on Saturday and Monday, December 23rd and 25th, the Alberta Oilers will be in Chicago. Both nights family night. That means that all children 14 years of age and under will be admitted for $2 when accompanied by a paying adult. Family night, December 23rd and 25th against Alberta. On the 22nd, Bobby Hull's Winnipeg Jets.
7 seconds left in the Chicago penalty.
Here comes Fleming, one-on-one, tries to get around Sanders, can't do it, now tries to center. He can't do that either as he's ridden down hard by Craig Folkman, by Bob Lillyholm rather. Now, puck finally taken off by Popeil for Chicago. Left wing pass to Morris. Morris over the blue line, tries to thread his way between Sanders and Ryan, can't do it. Taken off by Sanders behind goal. He's ridden into the boards by Barber, poked away, taken off by Minnesota. This is Paradise. He shovels it out. It's going to be icing coming up against the Minnesota Fighting Saints as soon as Gahan touches it. And there's the whistle. Icing called against Minnesota. They'll bring it up to the left of Mike Curran.
And Speck returns the penalties over. No damage done on either one of those penalties. And Brad, it's turned into a typical Minnesota Saint Chicago game. It's a toss-up, and it's far from over.
And don't forget, you can see the Chicago White Sox here on Channel 44 this summer. 135 games, home and away on WSNS, Channel 44 in Chicago. 2:58 to go, second period of play, with Minnesota leading Chicago 3-2. A shot off the face-off, right on Curran, but right at him, he made the save. Taken off by Minnesota. Fleming tries to poke it away, can't do it. Here's Hupper Christensen. He's got Gahan the beat. He holds up, tries to center, and broken up nicely by Fleming. Fleming now tries to center for Lodbo, can't do it. Broken up by Minnesota. Thrown right back in by Frank Sanders, but taken off by Gahan of Chicago. Gahan over to Barber. Both teams at equal strength. 30 to go, second period. Cougars a goal down. This is Barber into the Minnesota zone. Taken off, though, instead by Minnesota's Dick Paradise. Paradise over here to Speck. Speck tries to control. Checked hard by Barber and Morris. Far side to Lodbo. He takes a check from Hampson and comes out to center ice. Taken off there by Paradise over to McMahon. McMahon throws it up to Christensen, but he can't control. Goes against the board. Scramble there. That gets it for McMahon. Here's McMahon. One man to beat. Shoots it, but deflected by Gahan off his skate. Comes out to Chicago. Kept in by Christensen now of Minnesota. Now Billy Klatt. Now Ted Hampson. Hampson for Minnesota. Centers it. Shoots it in off the side of the net. Woodlows are going to face it off.
Big Larry Gahan got his foot in the way of what looked like a good scoring chance by a shot up by Mike McMahon. And Gahan's got a habit of always being in your road. I guess after as many years as he's played, he goes on the theory to never take any more steps than you have to, and you think before you take any. And that usually leaves him in the right position. 1:44 to go, second period of play. Following this period, we'll be talking with Cougar scout Jacques Demers and Cougar defenseman Dick Presiviat, who is still nursing an injury. Also Bob Halverson, the publicity man for the Minnesota Fighting Saints. Puck comes out right in front of the crease, but taken off by Chicago. Payma up against the boards, has it poked away by Hupper Christensen. Christensen controls, a minute 22 to go, second period of play. Minnesota nursing a 3-2 lead. Into the Chicago zone, taken off by Jan Popeil, our post-game guest. Popeil thrown to the ice, no call. Out to McMahon. McMahon defense now for Minnesota. Center ice, tries to lead Christensen, overleads him, goes all the way into the corner. Back to get it for Minnesota, Hampson, but Maverty gets it for Chicago instead. He throws it out here to Payma, but overleads him. Taken off by Minnesota. 52 seconds to go now in the period. Taken off by John Arbor. Over to Speck. Speck tries to go around Popeil. Can't do it. Poked away back to McMahon. Both teams fighting at center ice. Not much going on right now. Out to Popeil. Popeil tries to get it into the Minnesota zone, but he can't do it. Conley gets it away. And back out to center ice. 30 seconds to go. Popeil again tries to do it, but shoots it off Conley's pad. Comes all the way into the Chicago end. Bud gets it out to Popeil. Out to center ice, and Minnesota takes it away.
18, 17 seconds now to go. Second period of play. Anderson falls down all by himself. Gets it over to Mavety. Mavety with 11 seconds. Mavety has shot him. A stick save by Kern. Taken off by Terry Ball. Tries to clear it. Can't quite do it. No, he did, because Anderson brought it back, and it's an offside against Chicago with 2 seconds to go. So I can pretty much say that there's going to be no more scoring in this period, with Minnesota leading the Cougars a score of 3-2.
Anderson did a little stick handling on his knees there to save a goal.
Did. Comes out to center ice, the horn goes off, and so at the end of the second period of play, the Minnesota Fighting 3 and the Chicago Cougars 2. And I'll be right back with more after this timeout.
Both Chicago goals, power play goals. Minnesota wasn't, was it? Did I say it was at one time? Okay.
Yeah. When Halverson gets here, we'll have a couple of spots in between, but I'll let him sit here.
Yeah, sure. I might as well get out of here now. I come up. I'll be pulling out the
Okay.
plugs.
Thanks. Is he down there yet? No, the first interview. Brad Palmer back at St. Paul Auditorium after the second period. The Minnesota Fighting Saints now lead the Cougars by a score of 3-2. A very eventful second period of play for both teams, because Minnesota went into the second period leading the Minnesota went in leading the Cougars by a score of 2-0. But the Cougars came up with a couple of power play goals within 2 minutes of each other. Reg Fleming breaking the scoring ice for the Cougars at 7:56, a power play goal, his 13th of the year. And then about a minute and a half later, a little less actually, Rick Morris deflected a shot by Larry Mavety, his 6th goal of the year. That tied this hockey game up. And then just 20-some seconds later, Billy Klatt got a go-ahead goal for Minnesota, his 12th goal of the year. John Arbour getting the assist. We're going to be talking with Jacques Demers down on the ice a few minutes from now. He is the scout for the Cougars, one of their scouts. And so far I haven't got the shots on goal in this period. We're also going to be talking with Dick Presiviat, the injured defenseman of the Cougars, who has been out some 6 weeks with a broken clavicle. That's a bone up here in his left shoulder. And also Bob Halverson, the publicity man of the Minnesota Fighting Saints, who's going to tell us of this new arena that they're going to be opening up very shortly adjacent to this building. It's the St. Paul Civic Auditorium, and it's going to seat 16,000 people for hockey. I'm not sure if we have our man Jacques Demers getting set up down in the eye now. He's a scout for the Cougars. So Reg Fleming, his 13th goal of the year. Rick Morris, his 6th goal of the year for the Cougars to tie the hockey game up. Then Billy Klatt throwing the Minnesota Fighting Saints on top with his 12th goal of the year at 9:35. 5 penalties in that period, 3 on Minnesota, 2 on Chicago. Popeil going twice, once for hooking, once for charging. Speck, Kern, and Ball going for Minnesota. A pretty... Both teams, of course, at equal strength, as that power play brought Livingston out of the penalty box. A power play goal by Hupper Christensen. Here's a shot. Pema goes over the net, off the glass on the far side, out to the point to Anderson. Anderson over to Popeil. Popeil tries to get it through Terry Ball. McMillan can't do it. Taken off by Antonovich. Antonovich up left wing, carries over the blue line, tries to get around Mavety. Can't quite do it. He's ridden off the puck and back to get it to Zinski for Chicago. Into the corner they go. Taken off there by Pema. Pema tries to clear it. Oh, a dangerous play right out in front of McLeod. Popeil throws it over here to Pema on the right side. Pema shoots it in. Curran comes out to give it to Terry Ball. Ball behind his own goal. Ball tries to deke around Popeil. Finally gets it out to center ice, but overleads Karnik. Taken off by Anderson to Chicago. 10:09 to go in the third period, and Chicago trailing Minnesota for 2. Oh, a hard check by Pema. Took Terry Ball right off his feet. or Dick Paradise rather. Paradise now with the puck. He throws it into the Chicago zone. Back to get it McLeod. Leaves it for Anderson. Here's Anderson. The Cougars have got to do some scoring. They're down by 2 goals. 9:48 to go in the third period. Coming across the blue line, Popeil drops it up for Paymont, but Paymont can't get there in time. Taken off by Karnik. Karnik goes down. Chipping coming up against Minnesota. Here's for Minnesota. Whistle blows, though. It's going to be chipping against Larry Cahan.
Cahan had good.
So with that penalty, let's take a timeout. Ask Stegner if he plans. And here's the replay of that penalty on Larry Cahan coming up, Harry. There he goes. Karnik being tripped by Larry Cahan. Cahan goes for 2 minutes for chipping at 10:25, so the Cougars once again have to play a man short, and they can ill afford it because they trail in this hockey game 4-2. Face off right in front of the Cougar bench.
And George Connick came down on Larry Cahan and tried to go to his inside and actually had Larry beaten. But Larry left his stick back out there in desperation, and it cost him 2 minutes.
Minnesota controls in its own zone, now going to try to set it up. Minnesota has a power play goal already in this period. Hupper Christensen getting his second goal of the night. Fleming throws a check at McMahon. Crowd doesn't like it. Here's Morrison for Minnesota. Centers for Terry Ball. Ball is shot, deflected out in front. Speck now pokes it back the ball. Ball into the corner to Morrison. Morrison looks to center, and it's poked out to center ice by Reg Fleming. Back to get it, Mike McMahon for Minnesota. 1:20 on the penalty to Larry Cahan. Here's Speck's shot, deflected partially by Barber into the corner. Rick Morris back to get it for Chicago. He goes down with Fred Speck. It looked like Morris took Speck down from behind on that one.
Looks like we're wrestling steers out there.
That's right.
It got the job done, however way he did it.
Here's Speck, broken up by Barber. Comes out to Morris. He's going to try to clear it, and he does. No trouble. Gets it by ball out to center ice. Speck gets it back to man. They're going to try to set it up again. 47 seconds now on the penalty to Cahan. Here comes Minnesota. Goes into the corner. It's foot race between Mavety and Speck. Mavety gets it there first, but it comes to Conley. And Curran knocks Conley off his feet, but no call. The crowd doesn't like it. Coming all the way out here to the blue line is Curran for Minnesota, and now he barks at Ray Thomas because Jim McLeod knocked Conley off his feet with a stick save.
And then Reggie Fleming doesn't think that Curran should be allowed to come 50 feet out of his net and fall on the puck. I don't know whether Thomas was not watching McLeod, but McLeod flung his stick behind the net there and tripped Conley, and George Morrison was standing right in front of him, so McLeod was effective in possibly stopping a goal and got away with what might have been a penalty. However, referees are usually pretty lenient when you've already got one guy in the box. Anything short of murder, they let you go.
Here comes Minnesota again, and McLeod comes out a goal. Hampton back there. It comes all the way around and goes right through Frank Sanders. Icing call coming up here against the Chicago Cougars. You cannot ice the puck in the World Hockey Association, even if you're a man short. And the Cougars are a man short. It will be so for the next 13 seconds. Larry Cahan sitting in the penalty box. There is Larry Cahan, the Cougar captain. He'll be 39 years old on Christmas Day.
Well, he's a good one, and he's been around the block before in this pro hockey. And he's not as quick as he used to be, but he has a lot of savvy and plays a real good, strong game for Chicago out there.
Broke into the National Hockey League in 1954 with Toronto. Also played with the Rangers, the Seals, and the Los Angeles Kings. Was the captain of the Kings in 1970. That's Larry Cahan. 5 seconds to go on the penalty to Cahan. We've got a tripping call coming up against Minnesota. Hupper Christensen is going for tripping. So with Hupper going to the penalty box and a manpower advantage coming up for Chicago, let's take a timeout. Huffer Christensen goes 2 minutes for tripping. Cahan still in the penalty box with 5 seconds to go on his penalty, so in just a minute or two, a few seconds, the Cougars will have a manpower advantage. Here comes Cahan. The Cougars now have a manpower advantage for the next minute and 50 seconds. Larry Mavety behind his own goal. Now to set up the power play for Chicago. The Cougars trailing in this hockey game 4-2, but a chance here. Here's Nibbs over to Whitlock. Whitlock over the blue line. A shot goes wide. They saved by Kern, but it was wide anyway. Hampson and Fleming up in the corner along with Nibbs. Now to Frank Sanders. Sanders up to the blue line, held in by Mavety. Mavety over to the point to Liddington. Liddington tries to get it to Nibbs, but he overshoots him. Bounces off the boards back to Kern, and the whistle blows.
Brad, I think we're getting weak officiating tonight, and I'm not saying that because the Minnesota team got the last penalty. Chicago's got some debatable ones. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that there are two hockey teams trying to put on a good show on one referee trying to spoil it.
Well, I hope Gary Davidson isn't watching.
I hope he hears it. Too bad that both teams have to put up with it.
Can they find an assistant general manager?
Yeah, they can, and they probably will. You have to say what you think occasionally, don't you?
I sure do. This is Reg Fleming holding it in for Chicago. 1 minute, 7 seconds to go on the penalty to Huffer Christensen. Nibbs has it for Chicago, gives over to Mavety. Left side to Liddington, centering pass out to, here's Whitlock with the puck now. Whitlock's going to bring it up, he shoots it in. Back to get it, Curran out of goal for Minnesota. He flew out to Teddy Hampson. Hampson takes a check from Fleming up to the point to Nibbs. Nibbs back to Fleming. Fleming tries to center to Liddington. He does, but he's checked from behind by Hampson. Here's a shot, a centering pass for Whitlock, but Whitlock can't get a good shot off. He takes a good check instead by Johnny Iber. Minnesota clears it. It's going to be an icing call coming up here against Minnesota. But Minnesota has pretty effectively washed this Cougar power play. No, they wash out the icing.
Didn't quite make it. Stopped about 6 feet short of the icing line.
4 seconds to go. Penalty now to Christensen. He gets ready to come out. Now he's onto the ice. Equal strength now for both teams. Oh, a hard check that time. Arbor throwing Mavety into the boards. Out front to Minnesota. Huffer Christensen. Roar goes up. Christensen, a lead pass Hampton. But he can't get to it. Mavety takes him down, but no call.
No call is right. I'll tell you, Brad, it's a good thing that these two teams here are keeping their tempers, or we could have a full-scale brawl with the kind of frustrations that I'm sure Pronovo, Onmore, and the players are having out here, wondering whether every time the whistle goes there's going to be a penalty. Sometimes, if the players had been a little chippy out here, we'd have had 2 or 3 scenes, I'm sure. So I think great credit has to go to them for holding their cool in some tough situations.
I want to remind you that you'll be seeing the White Sox on Channel 44 next season, and the next Cougar game on Channel 44 will be Wednesday from Philadelphia. Tuesday night, the Cougars will be home against the Cleveland Crusaders. And then on Friday night, December 27th, Bobby Hull's Winnipeg Jets will be at the amphitheater. Bobby Hull making his first Chicago appearance in a Jet uniform. 4-2, Minnesota leads the Chicago Cougars with 4:57 to go in the third period of play. Both teams now at equal strength. Here come the Cougars. This is Bob Szynski. Throws it into the Minnesota zone. Back to get it, though, is carry ball for Minnesota. Gets it away from Cahan. Out to... kept in nicely by Szynski. Now Payma. Here's Szynski out to Barber at the point. Barber back to Szynski. Tries to set it up. Centering pass right up the slot, but Popeil couldn't get to it. He was screened off by Speck. And Minnesota gets it back out to center ice. Barber for Chicago. Minnesota can afford to play it. They've got a 2-goal lead with 4:20 to go. Cahan now back out to center ice to Szynski. A pass to Payma, overleads him, taken off by Minnesota. Here's Fred Speck over the blue line, and an offside. Wayne Conley in ahead of the play.
Well, time's running out of Chicago. They better do something in a hurry if they expect to get any kind of a shot at winning this
And
one.
let's take a timeout right now. Face off just outside the Cougar blue line. Red Fleming winning the draw. Red Fleming has the puck, but it's checked all away from him by John Garber. Fight for the puck in the Chicago zone and comes off to McMillan. McMillan tries to center, but he can't do it. He overleads Antonovich. Out to center right. Here comes Danny Lodbo. Lodbo over the blue line. He passed to Fleming, but it's broken up by McMillan. He falls down. Cougars trailing 4-2 with 3:44 to go. I want to remind you that the same situation existed in Philadelphia last month when the Cougars trailed 3-1 with 3 minutes to go. Came back to win that game 4-3. Maybe history can repeat, but it's going to take some doing. Because the Cougars have had trouble getting something going against Minnesota, as Minnesota's been content to get the puck back out to center ice. Here's Fleming over to Rick Morris. Morris on right wing, carries into the corner, has to beat Arbor, and he drops it back, but it's broken up nicely by McMillan, and he throws it out of the zone, and it's going to be an icing call coming up here against Minnesota.
3:05 to go, Brad, and I think you can expect Chicago to be gambling. I can't imagine Marcel Pronovost sitting on a loss without trying to take some chances, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Whitlock out there for the rest of the game, and he'll get the boys who can score some goals and perhaps sacrifice a little bit defensively in order to try to get back in the ballgame.
And Marcel looks up at the clock. Only 3 minutes, 5 seconds remaining, and he sees that 4-2 lead for Minnesota. Cougars have won their last 3 appearances on television. They've all been good one-goal games. Right now they trail by 2 goals. We only have 3 minutes and 1 second to go in the third period of play. Cougars have got to get something going right now. They still have 2 defensemen on the ice, but he may pull one of those defensemen in favor of a 4th forward. He may even go with 5 forwards. Up against the boards, taken off by Bobby Whitlock for Chicago. Whitlock brings up over to the blue line, gives up to Liddington. He saves for Nibs, but broken up nicely right out in front by Teddy Hampson of Minnesota. He leaves it out for Dick Paradise. Throws it out here to Hampson. Left side, out to center ice to Hupper Christensen. Christensen dumps it into the zone. Minnesota content to dump it and run that clock down. Back to Chicago. Here's Liddington up ice with 2:19 to go in the third period. A left wing pass to Whitlock, broken up by Frank Sanders of Minnesota. Sanders goes into the boards along with Whitlock, gets it off to Teddy Hampson, and brings it out, but broken up by Nibs. Nibs to Sanders. Shot Liddington just wide, just missed the post. Comes all the way out to Minnesota. Hopper Christensen. He's got 2 men to beat. He'll dump the puck. No, he holds up and tries to drop a pass off for Clapp, but broken up by Liddington out to center ice. Broken up now by Hampson of Minnesota. 1:51 to go now in the third period of play. Cougars trail 4-2. Out to center ice. Paradise dumps it back into the Chicago zone. And Barber goes all the way back to get it from McLeod. Butch Barber up for Chicago. 1:39 to go in the third period. Struck takes it away from him. Red Struck! A shot deflected off the stick of Cahan and up into the balcony.
Brad, I think you can see Minnesota now will forecheck 1 man, and they'll pick up both wingers, and they'll try to make sure they've always got 4 men between themselves and between Chicago and the goal. And they're not too concerned about scoring another goal. They'll just try and make sure they don't get any real good chances against them.
Face-off shot. Conley, a save. McLeod. Comes out to Reg Fleming of Chicago. Fleming up ice. Fleming a shot. A save. Curran, a hard shot. Looks like it bounced in on Curran. Fleming has his 13th goal for the Cougars tonight. 1 of 2 goals scored by the Cougars. Morris got the other, his 6th of the year. Icing coming up here. No, McLeod gets out to wipe out the icing call. It comes out to center ice. Taken there by Wayne Conley. 1 minute 3 seconds to go in the third period. And the Cougars down by 2 goals. The Cougars going with 4 forwards and 1 defenseman. Here's Reg Fleming. Throws it over here to Szynski, but overlays him. Taken off by McMahon, and McMahon just dumps it, plays it cozy. All the way down, up ice to Chicago zone. Icing call. Nope. Washed out again. Popeil didn't know the puck was behind him. Popeil, our post-game guest on Cougar Wrap-Up. Here comes Larry Mavety. Mavety right side to Payma, back over to Szynski. Cougars come up with less than a minute to go. Whistle blows outside against Chicago. 27 seconds to go. And it looks like the Cougars' 3-game winning streak on television is about over.
The Saints were fortunate on that play. It was only offside a fraction, and Larry Mavety was going to the net. George Morrison let him go. And I can't imagine him seeing the offside, and the puck came to him, and if Mavety had been onside, it would have been a real good chance for Chicago.
27 seconds to go in the third period. Minnesota 4, Chicago Cougars 2. Face-off just outside the Minnesota blue line. Bob Szynski going against Bob McMillan. Draw comes back to Reg Fleming over to Mavety. Mavety now tries to shoot, but checked hard from behind by Mike Antonovich. Here's a pass broken up of Mavety. Mavety, another shot, deflected in front by Szynski, and he almost deflected it in, but Curran made the save. Out to Charnock. 8 seconds to go. The crowd starts to chant. And Minnesota clears. It's going to be icing coming up, but the clock's going to just about run out. And it does. This hockey game is all over with the Chicago Cougars losing to the Minnesota Fighting Saints. A score of 4-2.
Thomas has to get the last lick. He called a penalty on Paymon at 20 minutes.
What do you call a penalty on?
Paymon. Wasn't enough to let the players finish the game. He had to have one more call.
That penalty comes at 20 minutes. I'll be back with a wrap-up from St. Paul Auditorium right at this timeout. And so the Chicago Cougars 3-game winning streak on Channel 44 came to an end tonight. The Cougars losing to the Minnesota Fighting Saints, a score of 4-2, and that evens up the series between these two teams at 3 games apiece. It puts the Minnesota Fighting Saints now 8 points behind the first place Winnipeg Jets, the Fighting Saints in second place. Keep in mind that the Minnesota Fighting Saints now have 5 games in hand, make that 6 games in hand on the Winnipeg Jets. So the Minnesota Fighting Saints very much in the battle for first place in the World Hockey Association. The Minnesota Fighting Saints jumped out to an early 2-0 lead with scoring twice in the first 2.5 minutes of play. Upper Christensen getting his 9th goal of the year at 1:45, and then just 37 seconds later, George Morrison got his 8th goal of the year. The Cougars came back, though, early in the second period, a couple of power play goals. The first by Reg Fleming, his 13th goal of the year. He leads the Cougars in that category. He scored at 7:56, and then at 9:07, it was Drick Morris, another power play goal, his 6th of the year. But just 28 seconds later, 9:35 to go at 9:35 of the second period, Billy Klatt got his 12th goal of the year for Minnesota. It put the Fighting Saints ahead to stay. They led 3-2, and then capping the scoring in the third period.